This is Mai Kue, and you are listening to The Narrow Path in the Floating Mountains. This is a podcast that is dedicated to stories and tellings of my spiritual experiences. Some of the stories I will be sharing will cover many topics such as the parallels in spirituality and mental health, ghost stories, dreams, tarot reading, mediumship, and more. I do want to provide a disclaimer that these are all just based on my personal experiences. I do not have any certification in spiritual healing or mental health therapy, nor do I have an altar to practice Hmong shamanistic healing or rituals. Many of the stories I will be sharing are based purely on my personal experiences and how I have made sense of them throughout the years. So to those who are listening to this podcast, I hope that you will enjoy my stories and join me on the narrow path in the floating mountains.
She calls me day and night. I'm sorry, girl, you just don't make me feel right. I never meant to make you cry, you were right. Just leave me be, I'm not gonna put up a fight.
For today's episode, as I promised, I will be continuing on the topic of dreams. So for this second part of dreams, I will be talking about the different types of dreams that I categorize my dreams into. Some of them being shamanistic, some of them being prophetic, some of them being about past life, some of them being about mediumship, and then some of them just kind of like random thoughts or thoughts that manifest into dreams that are very similar to visions you might get in meditation. First things first, what are they, right? What are all these different types of dreams that I categorize them into? So again, this is just my explanation. This is not something that already exists out there. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but this is just one way I like to categorize my dreams so I know what my dreams are telling me and what types of messages are coming through. So the first thing that I want to focus on is prophetic dreams, or dreams that are kind of like telling you, giving you a prophecy. They are in a way showing you the way to whatever kind of a struggle or whatever kind of circumstances you are in. They don't entirely show you the answer, but snippets of things that will potentially happen, but it's not literal. It's almost like in riddles, but in visual format. And then oftentimes you're kind of like left to figure out the rest of it, figure out what the rest of the message is. Sometimes it shows you what is going to happen or is already happening to bring to your attention the important thing that you need to be aware of. And then sometimes these dreams come to you in a very cryptic way, but the energy you feel in the dream is the energy and feeling you need to channel or be aware of. Now, I will be giving examples of what I mean by each dream too, so don't worry. I will kind of give explanations too. The next thing on my list is past life dreams. And these are dreams that reveal things that you may be dealing with in the present or your current life, but in a setting that is unfamiliar. So in your dream, it's like the whole environment is very unfamiliar, but the themes are very familiar, like almost deja vu. Even the individuals, they feel familiar, but they look different. Again, I will be explaining what that is through my personal experiences too. The next thing is mediumship dreams. And mediumship dreams, they occur when a deceased family member visits you to relay a message, basically like a visitation. For me, when a deceased family member visits me, they often bring a member who is still living. And then for me, what that means is that the person who is living may be in trouble or dealing with an ailment or not emotionally or mentally stable. And so a deceased family member sometimes visits me along with this person who's living. And so mediumship essentially means that you're able to communicate with people who you know, or even real people who you don't know has passed on to be a spirit that can guide you. So in a way, they've become a spirit guide, or they visit you temporarily. They don't have to stick around. They visit you temporarily to be able to relay important messages to you, not necessarily to always like relay it to another person or warn another person of danger, but bring to your attention something very, very important. So that is what mediumship is, but in the form of dreams. You can have, or I have had, mediumship dreams. The last thing that, well, I guess not the last thing, because I kind of added in another thing to my bullet points of like different types of dreams. Before I go on to my last one that I originally had down, as I was looking over my bullet points, I came across another type of dream that I missed, but I feel that is also important to talk about. It is meditative dreams. So meditative dreams for me are dreams that don't necessarily have to connect with a message to be relayed outward, or is not like anything having to do with a prophecy or even anything that has to do with a past life, but a dream that is just revealing to me meditative like visions. So the same type of visions you would have in a meditation, but it would appear in a dream and more vividly. So that's another type of dream that I like to categorize my dreams into, is that it really doesn't have any type of meaning or message that needs to be relayed outwards. It really is just a dream for me to contemplate and think about and channel, to be present, to kind of like unravel whatever it is that I'm dealing with. And I call them meditative because in meditation, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to unpack, you're trying to like be present, you're trying to find a sense of peace, but instead with dreams, in a dream state. So the last thing is shamanistic dreams. And I thought about whether I could include this in my list. I do feel that I have very shamanistic dreams, but I also want to be very clear that I don't have like an altar, or I don't practice any shamanistic healing rituals. But the ways that I have realized the type of dreams that I have is very similar to how some shamans explain their dreams. However, I don't act on it. I don't use it to try and like do healing to others, because that's not what I can do. I think there is a barrier between being able to have similar, like being able to do similar things, but also like knowing, I guess like just being very careful with how you use that information, because there is a very thin line. But you also don't want to start practicing and then, really mess something up and not have like a mentor, or have like a ritual, or have a practice to help you practice in a safe way, right? And so I only share this because maybe some people do have shamanistic dreams and they're not quite sure. It makes them question whether they have like the gift to heal. I'm one to believe that everyone has some type of gift to heal, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. But it just looks differently. And how I'm able to use my shamanistic dreams isn't the way that a shaman would. It's usually in a very similar way to how I have mediumship dreams, or prophetic dreams, or past life dreams. I think in a later episode too, I do want to talk about like the ethics of having being very in tune with your spiritual side and being very careful too, or if you are someone who is looking to provide like spiritual services, that there is a sort of like code of ethics no matter what type of spirituality you practice, that it's very important to have like a code of ethics. But again, I guess like I'm just kind of sharing this because again, people can have very shamanistic dreams, but to be a shaman, you have to obviously go through this extensive or this like rigid initiation process. And not only that, another shaman has to recognize that you have a gift or you're supposed to do this. It's, again, I also feel like it gets pretty complicated because I do feel that there are some spiritual practitioners and also Hmong shamans that very rigidly like gatekeep the process to getting initiated, and I fully understand why, but I also feel like there's not a lot of knowledge in the practice in itself to help educate others how to feel, how to know how to heal themselves and feel more empowered. I also know that even for some people who want to heal and seek spiritual services, that sometimes there is some accountability on the person's part where they also have to be willing to do their part in self-healing too, rather than constantly feeling like they are able to seek healing services and just feel like that's the band-aid on the wounds that keep opening up. So in a way, it's like, you know, it's a very two-way street. I understand the gatekeeping part of like initiating shamans, but I also understand the part about I guess like I'm also like very aware. I shouldn't say I'm very aware. Okay, so I'm very aware that there are some people who can benefit from some of the knowledge that is being held, but then also that it could also be harmful too. So I guess it's like a cautionary thing. Like, be cautious about the type of knowledge that you obtain or the type of healing that you obtain. But anyways, to continue onto my list of the different types of dreams, one category I like to categorize my dreams into is shamanistic dreams, and this often has like traits of traveling to various areas of the spiritual world, like I had mentioned in the last episode. You in shamanistic dreams too, you are doing spiritual work in your dreams, also known as dream work. So you're doing a lot of healing in your dreams. Another example of doing dream work as a shaman too is that you're performing your shaman duties in your dreams. For example, Hmong shamans are known to like kill demons and evil spirits in their dreams, or in even meditation or trance state. And so that's another characteristic of a shamanistic dream. And then of course, like sending away harmful spirits too, being able to communicate with them and send them away. It also includes seeing the cause of someone's ailment on the spiritual side, so being able to communicate with the person who needs healing and being able to communicate with their spirit through the dreams. So again, doing dream work. Oftentimes these dreams occur before you meet the person or even know about what they are struggling with. So some things that I've heard in with some shamans is that they'll have a dream of the person who they're supposed to be doing healing on, but they've never met this person, but they'll have a dream of this person, or they'll have a dream of this person's like concern, and then the next day, not knowing if the person is visiting them, the person will just show up at their front door and just ask for like help, like the way that you would for a Hmong shaman. And so sometimes shamanistic dreams, those are the characteristics to it. Another thing too is that you could be expecting someone and you don't know what they want, and you know that they're coming to visit you, and then you have a dream the night before about something relating to that person or something even unrelated, until the next day they reveal it to you and you realize like, oh, I had a dream about you, and this is how it's related to your current situation. And so you may also be shown how to heal the person, right? How are you supposed to do healing? Sometimes in shamanistic dreams too, or I feel like even with mediumship dreams, or even meditative dreams, you're shown how to do healing work. It could even be like in cryptic ways. A lot of times, for me anyways, it comes in very cryptic ways, but you're being shown like, oh, this is how you use this, or you're being shown how to even channel or use a spiritual gift. That these things, when they occur in your dream, I like to categorize them as shamanistic dream, just because in shamanistic dreams, the indication is that you're doing healing work, healing dream work. Okay. More than often, shamanistic dreams have spiritual activity centered around another person and not you, right? So the spiritual activity that's occurring in your dreams, it's around one other person and it's not you. Okay. But I could be wrong too. I think that actually, I feel like there has been, no, because I just said that in shamanistic dreams too, you can be shown how to do healing. So I take that back. Because in one of my dreams too, I was shown how to channel. I was shown how to channel like other spirits, and it was a very interesting thing. But I'll try to get through this, and then hopefully if that comes back up, I'll mention it again. But additionally, to shamanistic dreams, you may even be shown a new way to connect with a gift, or shown a new way to channel. So I guess like kind of what I was saying, like you're shown how to do tarot readings. You're shown like even visions within your dreams as like a person who's just kind of like hanging out. You're even shown visions within a dream, if that makes sense. You're shown like spiritual things within dreams. It's almost very like meta, right? Like you're aware that you're aware type of dream, like lucid dreaming. I also want to let you know that even though I have shamanistic dreams, that I don't actively go out and try to heal people the shamanistic way. I channel my gifts more so through like tarot readings or intuitive readings or oracle readings. And it isn't just that like I just decided that one day I was gonna start offering readings or start doing readings or start like helping people interpret dreams. I did take courses and workshops through various circuits and with experienced spiritual practitioners before I decided to do this. In these workshops too, they teach you like the code of ethics, what to do, what not to do, how to stay grounded, how not to be like so out there, how not to read or channel other people's aura energies. And sometimes it happens, but you still just shouldn't like go up to a person and be like, hey, your dead grandmother's like talking to me. because sometimes some people aren't ready to hear it. So same thing with like shamanistic dreams, right? Even though you're like seeing things, it's not okay for you to just go up to a person and tell them like what you saw, even if it's the same person you see in your dream, right? So again, this is more so just a way to, it's like one of those things where you just need to protect your aura too. You do want to be protected with it. You don't want to be going out like seeking like to heal people, because you don't know what baggage you could be opening up, like what Pandora's box you could be opening up. So protection, with that said, is highly recommended. Like I mentioned in the last stream, there are plenty of crystals and ways you can practice to protect you during sleep. So navigating your dreams can be fun and exciting, but be sure to do the research and know what you're doing too. Having a dream journal is a good start if you just want to be able to document your dreams, to connect to the spiritual symbolism in your dreams, to help you better interpret your dreams. And so the more you document in your journal what your dreams are, the more you start realizing like how things connect, how when you have this particular type of dream that this happens. That's kind of how I started in high school. I didn't mention this, but in high school I kept a really like detailed dream journal. It was essentially like my diary or my journal, but I would write down my dreams all the time. And actually that ended up benefiting me in the future in just how I am able to recall like my dreams, or how I started realizing like, oh my gosh, like my dreams are really trying to tell me something. Having a dream journal or even a journal to document anything that came to your thought is actually really helpful. It helps you to exercise that muscle too, so that it just becomes more vivid and more frequent, and you are able to have more of a handle at even your dreams, warding off like certain things in your dreams, or just knowing how to handle things in your dream state. Essentially what can happen is that your dreams just become more vivid, and you're able to be more lucid and be more aware of the things that are happening in your dream. So then you're thinking at the same time in your dream like, oh, this is the message that's being relayed to me right now. When you do wake up, it'll still be that same thought, and you can make sense of it and meditate or think about it more when you're up, when you're awake. And then of course there's crystals too. I mentioned astrophyllite, hematite, bismuth, black tourmaline, and smoky quartz. That helps protect you as you're traveling or navigating your dreams. That's always a plus. But if you're interested in dream recall, there are other crystals that you can definitely use to help you recall your dreams better. One that's out there that my husband and we actually really like working with is called shaman's dreams, or a garden quartz, or lodolite. It goes by 3 different names. And then there's also dream quartz, and there's the amethyst. And so there's a bunch out there for dream recall, and these are just some of them. And so as you keep practicing, that muscle of recalling your dreams, it gets a little bit easier to handle. You are able to interpret your dreams much, much better, because in your dream journals and in recalling it and knowing how all the dots connect, you're able to decipher the dreams a little bit faster, and the messages come through more clearly. And so I did mention that I was going to provide examples of these types of dreams, right? So starting at my first category, I was talking about prophetic dreams, where like an image or the scenario that you're in is relaying some type of information that is needing to be brought to your attention. A prophetic dream can also have other characteristics too, like it could be a family member that has passed is trying to relay a message to you, or is involved with you in this situation that you're in. But an example of a prophetic dream is that I've only had them a couple of times, and it usually happens when there is something that is happening in the collective, like a huge traumatic event is either happening or about to happen. And I want to talk about two dreams. I had a dream that my husband and I and a few family members, we were on this like safari tour, and we were on this Jeep, and as tourists we were on this Jeep. We were, doing one of those like African safari tours, and I just remembered seeing in my dream a line of soldiers coming towards us, and all of a sudden women and children were running in the opposite direction. They were running towards us. They were running away from this line of soldiers, and all of a sudden, like, we all were stricken with fear and terror, and just knew like something wasn't okay, almost like the world was ending. And so we got left behind, and me and my brother, who was with me in my dream, started looking for my son and my niece. And so we were panicking and trying to look for them, because someone was saying that, the ones who are going to be dealt with the worst in times of war were women and children, and that they were going to slaughter all the men but keep the women and children alive, basically as like slaves. And so as like prisoners of war, but in very like horrendous, use us in very horrendous ways. And so I panicked, and I found my son, and we started hiding. We started hiding in the tall grass, and we just saw all these soldiers like walking past, and I couldn't determine what their nationality was, but I just knew like they were African, and I didn't know what region it was, but they were African. And then the women, they were also African, the natives, and they had the traditional like fabric, like the Dutch wax printed fabric, and they were carrying baskets on their heads. And so everyone was fleeing, and it was feeling like the end of the world. And so when I woke up from this dream, I was like really, really scared. I was like, something bad is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen. And I told my husband, I was like, I kind of feel like I was in Sudan. And so I was telling him this dream, and I was just really distraught by it. And so I just kind of left it at that, kind of went on with my day, and I left it at that. 3 days later, I saw in the headlines that there was war in Sudan, and that the communication and all forms of communication were being cut off. And so this was around the time when, I think it was around like 2018, 2019, that it was being reported. And it was like months and months and months of them just being cut off from the outside world, and how like women and children were being used as prisoners of war. And so for me at that time, realizing that, just feeling that I had this dream, it was a prophetic dream, how could I not have stopped it? What could I have done? And the thing is, sometimes when we have prophetic dreams and we have this sense of like awareness and urgency and danger, as if danger is approaching, that there is almost little to nothing we can do when it is a greater issue that is affecting more than just a few people that you know, that it's affecting like a whole population and a whole region. A similar thing happened too when I had another dream that happened in the same way, where in this dream I was sitting in a tavern in this like old cowboy like tavern. It was still way back in like the 1700s when cowboys were still around and towns weren't developed yet, and there was like only a couple of buildings in these towns. Like there was maybe a tavern and a church, and then everyone that arrived to this town were either going to the tavern or the church. And the thing is, I was dressed. I was like, okay, we were dressed in like olden time clothes, like the brown boots and the dress and the corset and the white shirts, right? And so we were in a tavern, and all of a sudden a group of men came in and told us to all line up, strip naked, line up and lay down. And so in my dream, I felt myself like just feeling like, what am I going to do to survive? And so outside, it was very dry. The grass was very dried. There was dust blowing. There was tumbleweed. It was just hot. It was like flat land for as far as I could see. And as we were being told to strip naked and lie flat on the ground, I knew that the moment that we turned our back, that we were going to get shot, because these men were standing behind us with guns held to us. And so I ended up taking a deep breath, and in my head just thinking, you need to take this opportunity to run. And so something had happened that distracted them, and as soon as that happened, I took the opportunity and ran. And as I ran, I could feel bullets hitting the ground or ricocheting off the building. And I remember there being children and there being women, and then people of color. So myself being a person of color, and the other people who were being lined up were also like immigrants or people of color. We all just started fleeing. And I remember running back into the tavern and hiding under a set of stairs and hearing the footsteps of this person walking around this building, and it just being dead silent. And so I woke up from this dream, and as I always do, I share this dream with my husband, and I try to figure out what the heck is going on. And I told him, I was like, it was so weird, because I felt like it was like Texas, but in the olden days, right? Like the cowboys. And just thinking, like, even in contemporary times, that, Texas being like the state, and the cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys and everything. And so again, a few days later, it was reported that there was this gunman who was shooting up Walmart, and many like people of color were victims to this massacre. And so again, having had this dream and realizing it and feeling powerless, because you not only were aware of something that was going to happen, something that you couldn't quite put your finger on, that this happened, and just feeling like, I'm having these dreams, or if I have this gift, why am I like being delivered like these dreams if I can't do anything about it. And so oftentimes like prophetic dreams will have that effect on you, and sometimes you can do something about it, and then sometimes you can't. A similar thing also happened to me with even my own family members, and it was something that I couldn't even prevent, because it was bound to happen no matter what. And so that being an example of prophetic dream. With past life dreams, it's pretty straightforward what a past life dream is. It's revealing a moment from your past life to show you what life was. And oftentimes this vision or whatever dream this is that is showing you like a moment from this past life is meant to kind of reveal to you or remind you of reoccurring dreams that you're having to deal with from your past life. And so why I categorize them as past life is because anyone who knows me personally would know that I share this a lot. And I tell people all the time that we are on the subject of dreams and spirituality and just meeting the one, I have had dreams of my husband and my son before I met them. And so one of the dreams that I have had of my husband was that him and I it was like in this particular dream, we saw each other, and he told me he was going to take me to travel the world. And so the thing that the easiest way for me to explain like the feeling or even that moment was kind of like the magic carpet ride moment with Jasmine and Aladdin, except for we didn't have like a carpet. We were literally just like jumping from one country to the other. And so it almost felt like a lifetime where we were like floating in the clouds, and he was just kind of like taking me everywhere, And so the thing is, like, I didn't see his face, but there were characteristics that were very similar to him. And at the time that I had my dream, this is where dream journals come in very handy, because when I had this dream, I wrote it down. Like this dream I had 2 years before I met my husband. A year or two. It wasn't quite 2 years, but it was like at least a year before I met my husband. And we didn't know each other at all. And so in my dream, when I had this dream, I identified him as like a light-skinned guy with like close shaved hair. And so he was like nearly like bald, but he still had some hair on him. And he wore khaki, and his aura was just, in the dream, his aura was just pure and white and very good energy. And the experiences we had, we were always in these places that were really, really well lit. And so as we were traveling, we just had a really great time, like just basically like meeting each other's souls. And so at the end of the dream, he ended up taking me to this white marble like temple, and I just remember there being a bunch of like fabric hanging from the ceilings, tall ceilings, and him just kind of like giving me, like embracing me and telling me that he has to go and that he'll come back for me. And he just kind of like held me for a really long time, and I just in my heart felt like, why does he have to go now? And thinking that, I wanted this to last forever. And so when I woke up, I was really disappointed because I'm like, I wasn't dating anyone. I've never dated anyone before I met my husband. And so when I woke up, I was just thinking like, oh my God, can I just go back to sleep? Like, this was such a good dream. And so I wrote it down. Obviously, I wrote it down because it made such a huge impact on me that I wrote it down. And then a few years later, even 2 years into our relationship, that I realized, I was looking through my dreams, my dream journals, all my journals, and I realized that I came across this entry, and I realized that I had a dream about him, because I was matching, like, wait a minute, like, he has close-shaven hair, and he would kind of be, like, light-skinned if he was tanned, because my husband's pretty fair-skinned, but when I met him, he had just came back from Russia, where he was helping them do trail work, and he was, like, super tanned from that. And so when I met him, he had just gotten back. And so I was thinking about it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is kind of making, like, connections. And then also in my dream, I just kind of felt like he had a very pure, like, Buddhist monk type of, like, aura. And so after meeting him too, we've had readings. Actually, after we got married, we had readings where they picked up a lot of, like, past life, like, Buddhist past lives for my husband. And so it just kind of makes sense. And I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so crazy, you know. And so I kind of felt like that was a snippet of our past life together. I've had other dreams too, where I was just, like, waiting for him for a long time, and just in my dreams crying and waiting for him, and even in my dreams seeing him in person and remembering him, but him just looking at me as if I was a complete stranger. And so in my dream, in this other dream, when he finally realized who I was, like, I was really upset at him and telling him that, you know, why did he wait so long to recognize me? And, you know, I was so upset. And he's like, well, I didn't know. But I could go on and on about this. I also, again, have had dreams of, like, my son, but they weren't really past life dreams. They're more so of, like, him preparing to come down to meet me and my husband. And so anyways, mediumship dreams, I talked a little bit about it. So for me, with mediumship dreams, I talked about how deceased family members visit you and relay a message with you. So mediumship in general is about communicating with people who've passed, people who were living and has passed to the other side and are still kind of around to, like, communicate messages to you and also act as, like, spiritual guides. And so with mediumship, some of the dreams that I have had, and the first one I've ever had was that a few days before I had this dream, we had she's basically like a grandma to us, because the grandpa that she's married to is my dad's first cousin, or they're actually brothers. They were brothers. And so this grandfather and his wife, they were still in Laos, and so the family members were able to get them a plane ticket to visit the family members here. And so they were definitely older. Even for some of the Hmong elders there, they didn't have the education to even learn Lao or Thai. So even if they were in the city, they wouldn't be able to communicate with the city folk because they don't know the language. And so they came to visit us here in America for a couple of weeks, and they eventually, like, left. And so everyone was really worried about them because both of them were traveling alone. And I believe they were traveling alone. I think they had someone else, but I think they were traveling alone. And so what happened was, maybe like a day or two after they left, I had a dream that another grandma, she actually wasn't related to us, to either of my parents, but she is related to a cousin, an uncle. She was a Vang uncle's mom, and she had passed like a year before this dream, and a year before this grandpa and grandma came to visit us. And so I had a dream that I was in this dingy basement, almost like, you know how Hmong people have feasts or family gatherings, and they open up like a table in the basement so that everyone can like eat. Except for in my dream, there weren't any tables. There was just like this couch, and the basement wasn't like done at all. It was still just cement walls and cement flooring or concrete flooring. And so on this couch was this grandma. We call her 𝙏𝙗𝙚 because she was the grandma from the maternal side of this uncle. No, okay, it was this uncle, his wife's mom. There you go. So we called her 𝙏𝙗𝙚. And so this 𝙏𝙗𝙚 had passed away, and we grew up with her, and she was always really nice. But she passed away, and in my dream she was sitting on the couch, and on the other side was 𝙒𝒏𝒏 that came to visit us. And so there was 𝙏𝙗𝙚 and 𝒏𝒏 sitting on this couch, and 𝙏𝙗𝙚 was she was basically talking to me as if she was still alive. She was saying, "Oh, Mai Kue, you know, just asking me like, how are you doing?" Or, you know, just greeting me. And that's how she always was. She was always really nice, and she greeted us whenever she saw us, or she acknowledged us whenever she saw us. And so she was talking to me, and then on the other end was 𝑏𝒏. And you know, I started talking to 𝑏𝒏, and I said, "Oh, how was your travel, or how are you doing? It's really nice to see you both." And the 𝑏𝒏, she has a very soft voice, and so she kind of just said like, "Oh, you know, I'm doing okay," and really like quick with her words, not a lot of words. And so I woke up from this dream, and I thought about it. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I had a dream about 𝑏𝒏 from Laos, and I told my parents about it. And they were just kind of like, you know, "Oh, it's nothing, you know, it's nothing." Because again, like my parents, they weren't really spiritual, or they don't really, they believe certain things, but they don't really dwell on it. And so I told them, and they just kind of was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." So my parents got a phone call from Laos, from the relatives there who live with 𝑏𝒏 and 𝑦𝒔, and they were told my parents that, you know, 𝑏𝒏 and 𝑦𝒔 got home safe, but they came across an issue at the Lao airport where they were held, detained, and interrogated, and they were so scared because they couldn't speak Lao. And so they were held for I think it was like up to a day, and no one knew where they were. And so they were scared, and they were frightened, and they were crying, and that they eventually made it home, and that they were safe, and that the family members there were able to do a 𝙒𝙏𝒏𝒌𝒔 ceremony for them, so that they could, because they were so scared from the situation, that it will help call their spirit back so that they didn't get sick. And so in the phone call, like my dad just kind of brought it up to them that, you know, we're all doing okay, and we're glad that you're okay, and that the kids really miss you too because they had a dream about you, and, you know, so on and so forth. And so that was my first experience having a mediumship dream. And I've had some following that. They kind of pop up here and there, but because my I don't really open that up to communication with deceased loved ones, that I don't really get them. I think if I were to practice more, I probably practice like writing down my dreams more anyways, and connecting more, that I would be able to communicate more. But that's not something that I feel like is something that I'm comfortable doing too. I think I just prefer to let things like flow naturally rather than trying to go and seek answers or seek connection. But that was, again, an example of my first like mediumship dream. Now, for shamanistic dreams, I think I mentioned in my last episode too that oftentimes shamans or people who are rising to be shamans, they have dreams of flying. And, you know, I've had that, but I don't think that, I kind of feel like that used to be a characteristic of rising to be a shaman, but I feel that everyone has become so spiritually in tuned that it's kind of a norm. It's become a norm. But when I think about shamanistic dreams and doing dream work, I also think about the types of dreams where you're actually learning how to like do things in your dreams, and you just figure it out, and they are so like on point with how things are practiced that you know, it's kind of like you might as well just be practicing it. But again, with the complications with like the process and initiating or whatever, I don't think that's something that's in my favor or that I want to pursue anyways. But the types of shamanistic dreams that I've had is where like I'm literally like healing people in my dreams. Other dreams too is that I know that there's a form of channeling in the Hmong shaman like practice called 𝙏𝙗𝙚. And before I even knew like how it was done, I had a dream about it where I was actually, so with 𝙏𝙗𝙚 you have to use your body to be the vessel for like spirits to channel, to be channeled. So you're basically allowing your body to be a vessel for the spirits to come in and speak to the people about what is wrong in the spiritual world. So you're basically like a medium, right? You become a medium for these spirits. And so in my dream, I was being this vessel for the spirits to communicate through me. And I felt my own subconsciousness like thinking, but at the same time felt the spirit speaking through me and seeing into like the souls and the spirits of the people who I was doing a reading for. And in my dream too, I had a shaman like teacher. She was an elderly woman, not too old, but she was probably in like her early 50s, showing me and telling me like how to do it. And how she told me to do it was that I sit in a chair in the center of the room, and the people who are looking to get healing services from me would be sitting around in a circle around me, and one by one I will go down, and the spirit would tell them what needs to be healed and what is in their path. And so in my dream too, the voice wasn't mine, the behavior wasn't mine, but she was speaking to each of them. She even recognized someone who was someone from her past life, and she was crying with this person. I didn't know this person, but the spirit who was channeling through me knew this person, and they were just talking and crying. And she was saying that actually she was like the mother or the grandmother of the person who who was seeking like healing services. And like I didn't know this person who I was talking to. And the thing too is that I knew it was a shamanistic dream because, again, I was in a dingy basement. It was like cement, concrete flooring, and brick walls, and it was dimly lit. And so at the end of the session, the healing session in my dream, my mentor was really excited, and she like I felt the spirit leave me. Like when she was done, then she was done. You know, like I didn't have a say in it at all. When she was done with the healing, when she was done talking to everyone, then she was done. And she would tell the mentor, and then the mentor would help the spirit leave my body. And the thing was, like, this mentor too, when I obviously had to give consent that I was gonna want to do this, and then she put me in a trance, and she told me, like, okay, I'm gonna say a trance, and now you're gonna say it with me, and I want you to close your eyes. And in my dream, I closed my eyes, but I could also see everyone. And so I was talking to my mentor, and then all of a sudden, like, I knocked out, almost like I was hypnotized. And that's when the spirit had entered my body and was communicating. And so it was like I was seeing everyone, but I wasn't talking. And I could only think as if it was my subconscious. But I heard my voice, but it wasn't my voice. It was the spirit's voice. And like she knew, she spoke as if like an elder was speaking to you. And so at the end of this session, my mentor was really excited, and she was like, it was almost like her voice. My mentor was like your aunt, you know. It was like the one aunt who's like really like talkative and has a very unique laugh. Like, this was my mentor. And so she was really excited, and she's like, okay, kalilo. I just kind of hugged her, and I told her, oh, thank you so much for showing me this. Thank you so much for showing me how to do this. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And then, as soon as like I hugged her and I thanked her, I was like crying too, because I was able to like channel this gift that I wasn't sure that I had it in me. I was like crying, and she just kind of hugged me, and it was in a way like she was a kindred spirit or a kindred soul too, where me and her had a connection before like this lifetime in my dream, but our souls just connected because of this like relationship of mentor and student. And so I woke up and I was just like, what the heck was that? You know, like I basically was just used as a vessel for a spirit to channel this thing. And so the idea of channeling actually is pretty prominent in many like spiritual practices, like even in Western like forms of spirituality. I know that this happens in like voodoo and hoodoo spirituality, and then of course with Southeast Asian like spiritual practices. Like channeling is a very common thing, but with the Hmong people we have a name for it called 𝑷𝒐𝒂𝒔𝒕. And I've heard of the word before, but I didn't even know like how it was like practiced, and I've only heard it by like way of asking like elders like what it is, like my parents what it is, or even like hearing it in stories. But it was only until after I had that dream, I was listening to a story about someone who needed to seek a shaman who knew how to do this form of channeling, because it was only through this form of channeling that they would get the answer right away about how to heal this person or know what's wrong spiritually with this person. And so when I heard the story, it was literally like word for word, or like my experience that I had in my dream. And when I was listening to this story, I was driving too, and as I arrived to a red light, I had like, it was like coincidental, right? Talking about like signs and synchronicity. When I got to a red light, and the lady in the story, it was being told by the narrator of Simply Hmong. Like, it was a story about someone who needed healing because something spiritual was happening. And so as she explained like what was going on in the story, I got to a red light, and like a light bulb just like clicked, and I realized, I'm like, oh my god, like that is what I experienced in my dream. And so in my shamanistic dream, like this would be categorized for me as a shamanistic dream, is that I was being shown how to do this gift, right? How to do this skill, the spiritual skill. And so I just wanted to share that. I know it sounds pretty creepy and scary for some people, but it in a way is a little bit like unnerving. But I'm also one of those people who, like, I understand it, but I'm also like, I wouldn't try anything that I'm not comfortable doing, right? I wouldn't try anything that if I don't have enough knowledge in practicing it, or I don't have the right backup or research to do it, I won't do it. I'm also one of those people that I could be totally okay with listening to like ghost stories like all day long, but you know, it's still one of those moments where you just have like that feeling of hairs standing up at the back of your necks, because you could just feel something happening. And for me, when I get that feeling, I also become very wary or very cautious, because like nobody likes to be jump scared. But anyways, I think I have shared enough about the part 2 of dreams. I hope that you all enjoyed my stories, or even my explanation for how I categorize my dreams, and that if some of it resonated with you, that is awesome. I'm glad that it can resonate with you. And if it doesn't, that's completely fine, because it could have provided this episode could have provided you with some form of entertainment. And so thank you so much for tuning in, listeners. I hope that you will tune in to the next episode, where I think I've decided on what my next episode is going to be. And with all this talk about dreams and like gifts and things, I thought that it would be the perfect segue into answering the question of, do I have the gift? I'm often asked this quite a bit when I tell people, like or when people ask me if I do tarot readings, or like they discover that I do tarot readings, they ask me, so do you have a gift? And I actually have an answer for that. So if you want to know the answer for that, tune into my next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you in the next episode. And that concludes this episode of The Narrow Path in the Floating Mountains. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tune in for the next one coming out soon.
She calls me day and night. I'm sorry, girl, you just